Welcome back to the channel, and for this week's vlog, we're going to run an experiment and answer one question. Is it bad luck to play out of your rack? I've never done it in my life, so let's find out. In our first playable hand of the week, the action gets folded to me, and I look down at ace-king offsuit in the cutoff and open it to $12. Only the small blind puts in the call, so we're going heads up to a flop in position, and it comes out ace-queen-10 with 2 spades. It's a very connected board, so when she checks, I throw out a $15 bet for value. She puts in the quick call, and the turn comes out a second 10, but in the heart variety. I'm actually pretty happy with this card because if our opponent has an ace, they'll think their queen kicker is good. So when she checks again, I decide to bet for $25 this time. She quickly calls, so I'm putting her on an ace or a spade draw. Not much else. We're hoping for a clean river, but that's not what we get when it comes out the 6 of spades, bringing in the front door flush. She checks for a third time, and I think I've ran out of value, so I check it back, and she shows 10-9 offsuit for trips, and what we thought was a good turn was in fact the worst one of all. Not too much happened for the next hour, so we decided to table change to one of the wildest tables I've sat at in a long time. We get this table change started with a $15 bomb pot. 7 people join the party, so there's $100 in the middle, and I look down at 8-9 offsuit. We go straight to a flop that comes out king-queen-8 rainbow, and we have ourselves bottom pair. The action gets checked to me, and I decide to check as well, and luckily, it gets checked around. The turn comes out another 8, giving us trips. Everyone checks to me again, and I don't think they have much given the action, so I down bet to just $20. We get one nibble when an early position player puts in the call, and I don't think he has much after checking twice, so I'm putting him on mainly a queen. The river comes out a complete blank in the 3 of clubs, and when he checks to me again, I only bet $30. He folds pretty quickly, and we scoop in a nice pot. Maybe there is some luck while playing out of the rack. Maybe. In this next hand, an action player throws out the $11 straddle, and we see one caller in early position. Fellow poker vlogger Doug puts in the $11 on the cutoff, and when I look down at Jack-10 offsuit on the button, I should probably be folding this hand, but I decide to call as well because I'm doing it for the content. The big blind, who is a massive action player, now raises to $50. The early position limper folds, but this raise doesn't scare Doug away because he puts in the call. Once again, I should probably fold now, but what's the fun in that? I stick in the $50 as well, so we're going 3 ways to a flop in position, battling it out against an action player and Doug. Now that's content. The flop comes out king-queen-6 with 2 spades, and the action player continues with the $75 bet. Doug puts in the quick call, and now I have a decision with my open-ended straight draw. The action player has been out to lunch with his C-bets, so I debate just jamming all in with my equity since Doug shouldn't be too strong given the action, but I decide against it and just put in the call in position given a pretty good price. The pot has quickly ballooned to $400, and the turn comes out the 3 of spades, bringing in the front door flush. The action player continues the aggression for a $125 bet. Doug calls again, and unfortunately, there's no way I can call given the action, so I toss it in the muck, and I'm pissed off at myself for burning $125 for playing this trash. I believe the river came out a board pairing 3, and the action player jammed. Doug snap called, which resulted in a complete flush over flush cooler. The action player had ace-jack of spades, while Doug had queen-9 of spades. I'm just thrilled that I didn't shove on the flop, because I don't think either of them were going anywhere, so we dodged ourselves a bullet. This next hand shows just how wild this lineup is. I check out my cards and see that I have ace-king offsuit in the low jack. Doug opens to $15 to my direct right, and the standard play is to obviously put in a 3-bet, but the cutoff has been 3-betting every hand he gets involved in, so I try to set a trap and just call the $15. It gets folded to the action player, and as expected, he puts in the 3-bet to $50. Now it gets folded back to Doug, who puts in the call, and the trap is officially set. With $100 of dead money out there and only $400 in my stack, there's only one move, which is all in. I shoved this stupid rack in the middle, and now it's time to see if it's good or bad luck. I'm perfectly fine with them folding, but since the cutoff didn't snap call, I know I'm in pretty good shape against him and I wouldn't mind a call. I couldn't even make up what's about to happen. Talk about content. He grabs a coin from one of our table mates and decides to flip it for his decision on whether he's going to call or fold. One side of the coin says yes, and the other says no. Our opponent grabs the coin, yeets it in the air, and it nails my phone directly, knocking it over, and lands perfectly on the table on the yes side. So that means he puts in the calling chips, and let's replay it with the audio to see this wild sequence of events.
If by the coin, die by the coin. All right. This is good. Oh! Yes! 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 Oh. How did that happen?
Now that he put in the call, it's back on Doug for his decision. He grabs the coin and debates on whether he wants to flip it, but decides otherwise. I turn over my hand, and our opponent says that he's way behind, which we love to hear. We go to a flop, which comes out 9-5-3 with 2 spades, but now our opponent looks thrilled. Oh, shit. Turn is the 8 of spades. The river doesn't improve us in the 7 of hearts, and our opponent turns over ace-9 of clubs for top pair, top kicker. Even though we were a 67% favorite pre-flop, we got completely wiped out.
Goodness, at least it plowed from behind. Well, that's the city works department for you.
So sick. Nice hand. Oh, wow.
I added on $500 after getting stacked, which resulted in us being into the game for $1,000 total. We won a couple small pots, but unfortunately, not too long after this, the clock struck 2, so I bailed. I hate to do this in such a good game, but family comes first, so let's get to the day 1 outro.
Man, playing out of the rack. I'm officially a believer that it's bad luck, especially after that ace-king hand. Let's see what the rest of the week has in store.
As far as our results for the day, we were into the game for $1,000 even and out for $588, resulting in a $412 loss thanks to that stupid rack and stupid coin. For day 2, we start off with our $500 buy-in, and I'm thrilled to pull these chips out of the rack and place them on the table after yesterday's shit show. We want a small pot to start the day, but just a few minutes into the session, this wild hand comes along. Under the gun opened to $10, and when I look down at pocket threes in the hijack, I put in the call. The cutoff now 3-bets to $40, and when it gets folded to the small blind, he puts in the cold call. I'm now expecting the under the gun player to jam his entire stack, but he decides to just put in the extra $30. There's no way I'm folding now because I only have to call $30 to win $160, so I put in the extra chips. We're going 4 ways to a flop, which comes out king 10-3 with 2 hearts, giving ourselves bottom set. The small blind decides to take matters into his own hands and leads out for $40. The under the gun player now goes all in for $101, and the action is on me. I think there's definitely merit to going all in myself on such a dynamic board, but I'm not trying to drive out the other players who could possibly be drawing slim with a hand like King Jack. So I put in the $101, the original 3-better folds, and the small blind puts in the extra $61. The pot has ballooned to $460, and we have exactly that left in our stack, so there's plenty of money left to play for. We're going heads up to a dry side pot, and the turn comes out the worst card in the deck in the 9 of hearts. All the flushes get there, and the obvious straight of Queen Jack gets her as well. The small blind now leads out for just $60, and I'm not too sure what to do. This bet is super small, and I'm trying to figure out if he's trapping me with the monster or trying to see a cheap turn. I think there's merit to both calling and raising in this spot, but I go with the low variance route and just put in the call. I think he could possibly have 2-pair or a strong King X hand, so I'm not feeling too bad about it. With $120 in the side pot, we're praying for a board pairing card, but when the river comes out the 6 of spades, it's a complete blank. The small blind continues the aggression for $100, and I'm hating this spot. I know he isn't bluffing into a dry side pot, so I'm pretty sure he's value heavy. The only question is, do I beat his value? I have to call $100 to win $780, so I'm never folding for this price. I stick in the crying call, and our opponent turns over Queen Jack offsuit with the Queen of Hearts for the turn straight, and we lose a massive pot.
Oh, son of a gun. You thought I was going to say son of a bitch, didn't you?
We add on $300 to our stack to get those chips back on the table, so we're now into the game for $800 total. Not too long after this, we lost a small pot with pocket jacks, so we added $200 more to be into the game for $1,000 even. In this next hand, there's 3 limps to me, and I raise pocket queens to $25. The first limper now jams his short stack of $33. The second limper puts in the call, and the only thing I could do is call as well, so I throw in the extra $8. With $100 in the main pot and a dry side pot, the flop comes out 8-6-4 with 2 diamonds. It's a very connected board that favors our opponent's limping range, but our pocket queens is a very good hand, so I start off with the $45 bet. Our opponent quickly puts in the call, and the turn comes out the Jack of clubs. I don't think this card should really help him unless he specifically has Jack 8, so when he checks to me again, I decide to size up now for $115 to charge all his draws. He quickly puts in the call, and since he didn't raise on the turn, I'm mainly putting him on a flush draw. I think all sets or 2 pairs would have raised this turn. So we're going heads up to a river, which comes out the 9 of diamonds, bringing in the front door flush. He checks again, and I think my hand has ran out of value, so I check it back, expecting to lose to a flush, but he shows 6-9 of hearts for river 2 pair.
Oh, you nasty.
I mean, I knew the 9 of diamonds was a terrible card, but definitely didn't expect him to hang around with 3rd pair on such a big bet on the turn. I was low-key tilted after that hand, so instead of getting up and leaving, I reach into the wallet and add on my last $500, completely unloading the clip and making us buy into a 1-3 game for $1,500. In this next hand, we see 2 limps in early position, and I decide to over-limp pocket 4s. The limp fest continues when 3 more people come along, so we're going 6 ways to a flop of 9-7-4, once again giving us bottom set. I start off with a $15 bet, and just the button puts in the call. I've never seen her bluff or overvalue a hand in my life, so keep that in mind going forward. The turn comes out the king of diamonds, putting 2 diamonds on the board, and I continue the aggression with a $35 bet. She quickly puts in the call once again, and since the king didn't scare her, I think she definitely has a 2-pair hand or a draw. Something like 9-7 suited or a hand like Jack 10 that has improved to a double gutter. So with $113 in the middle, the river comes out the 8 of hearts. She has about $160 remaining, so I decide to bet $55 to target her 2-pair holdings, but now she snap jams all in, and I'm hating life. It's only about $100 more to call, but I just don't see how I'm good here. This was the same player from day one who just called down with trips when I had ace-king, and I've seen her just call down with sets on dry boards before. So I know for a fact that she has Jack 10. Therefore, I reluctantly toss my bottom set into the muck. That was painful.
$2.
Today has been a total disaster so far, but what better way to change that around when I look down at the Cowboys, pocket kings under the gun. I open these bad boys up to $17, and we see a middle position player put in the call. He's a pretty big station, so I'm happy with how things are going so far. The action gets folded to the big blind, who now 3-bets to $100 off a $200 stack. I'm just hating life right now because this is the only guy at the table who refuses to straddle, and I've only seen him showdown monsters. I'm either putting him on aces, kings, and maybe pocket queens. So I honestly debate folding these things right now, but I'm over $500 effective with the middle position player, so I stick in the call, praying that he comes along so I could build a massive pot. But unfortunately, he folds, and we're going heads up to a flop with $217 in the middle, and it comes out queen, queen, 5 rainbow, and now our opponent starts off with a check. I check it back, not trying to put another penny in this pot, because the hand that I was ahead with now has quads. So I'm either chopping or losing now, which is not a fun place to be. The turn is the 4 of clubs, and now our opponent shoves the rest of his chips in the middle. I'm just questioning life right now because how can I make such an exploitable fold and look at myself in the mirror the next day? But I decide to toss these boys in the muck and offer this guy a few bucks to show his hand. He turns over, you guessed it, pocket aces. Honestly, should have just folded pre-flop, but at least we didn't give him the last $100. I felt like I needed a little mix-up to hopefully get things turned around for the better, so I requested a table change. It was granted, and the first hand I got involved in was when an early position player opened to $15, and I looked down at pocket tens. I decided 3-bet next to act in position to $45. It gets folded to a friendly on the button, who now 4-bet jams his entire stack, but just for 133 total. The original raiser gets out of the way, and I'm hating this spot because at best I'm flipping, but I can't fold for just $88 more. So I put in the call, and we both turn over hands, which we love to see. He has ace-queen offsuit, so we're flipping, which I'm perfectly happy with. The flop came out king-jack-deuce with 2 clubs, and let's play the audio on what turn I didn't want to see.
I don't want to see a 10. Oh, no.
Oh my God.
Well, just knowing our luck today, the turn came out the 10 of clubs, giving us a set, but giving him the nut straight. And unfortunately, the river didn't pair, so we doubled up our opponent. I played for a little longer, but was pretty fed up, so let's get to our day 2 outro.
10's cracked, queen's cracked, king's cracked. Made 3 sets in one day, which is a complete rarity, and they all lost. I mean, maybe I should have played out of the rack. What the
As for results, we emptied the entire clip and bought into the game for $1,500 and ended up with just $605 for an $895 loss. Hopefully we could end the week on a good note for our 3rd and final session. Day 3 started off with us losing a couple small pots, and I decided to add on $500 to my stack. To be fully transparent with you guys, I usually don't do this right away, but I was straight up tilted after the results from the last 2 days. I also wanted to cover everyone so I could play in some massive pots. So today, I'm either winning big or losing big. No in between. The first interesting hand of the session comes when we open king-queen offsuit in early position to $15. 2 stations on the hijack and button put in the call. Flop comes out king 8-6 with 2 diamonds, giving us top pair and second best kicker. I bet $28 for value on a pretty connected board, and now the hijack raises to a massive sizing of $175 with only $100 left in his stack. This felt pretty suspect because I can't imagine him betting this much with a set and losing value. So my suspicions are up. The action gets folded to the button, who now jams his entire stack for $105, and for the 1,000th time this week, I'm in a nasty spot. I was debating about just jamming on the hijack if the button got out of the way, but now I have to beat both of these guys. Even if I am ahead, I'm probably just a slight favorite at best. So I reluctantly toss my hand in the muck, and these two guys are going to a run out. The turn comes out the 7 of diamonds, bringing in the front door flush, and the river came out the jack of hearts. The hijack turned over king-queen offsuit with the queen of diamonds, and the button turned over 10-3 of diamonds for the turn flush. Not to be results-oriented, but I guess our exploitable fold was the right play because the hijack would have been free-rolling us, and the button got there with his flush. After losing some more small pots and not connecting with any of the bomb pots, our stack has dwindled down to $700, and we're already down $300 in just a couple hours. What is going on this week? In this next hand, Under the Gun opens to $15, an early position player puts in the call, the hijack calls, and I look down at the beautiful ace-king of diamonds in the big blind. $15 ain't gonna cut it, fellas. It's time to raise the price of poker, so I bump it up to $75 total. The Under the Gun player snap calls, and so does the hijack when it gets folded to him. With $240 in the middle, we're going 3 ways to a flop out of position, and it comes out Jack-Jack-8 rainbow with 1 diamond. If this was heads up, I would throw out a 1/3 size C-bet with any hand I decided to 3-bet with, but since the hijack is also in the hand, I think this is a pretty bad spot to bluff because any pair is calling, and both of these players can have a jack in their range. So I decide to check, and the Under the Gun player bets for $75. The hijack folds, and I decide to just give it up and toss my hand in the muck, knowing I could be drawing slim. Let me know in the comments how you guys would have played ace-king 3 ways out of position. Just like jacks, I just never know what to do when I don't hit. I was pretty tilted at this point with how things were going, but what better way to turn it around when I look down at the bullets, pocket aces on the button. The hijack opens to $20, the cutoff puts in the call, and I decide to 3-bet to just $75 total. I'm just thinking how I'm going to get all these chips in the middle and double up my stack to get us in the positive. But the hijack doesn't think too long before tossing his hand in the muck, and now the cutoff goes in a mini tank, but also tosses his hand in the muck.
For fuck's sake!
There's 1 limp in early position, a tight player to my right opens to $13, and I look down at ace-king offsuit in the hijack. I decide to just put in the call with this trash, not wanting to go heads up against a tight knit, and hopefully outflop someone. The cutoff puts in the $13, and now the limper limp 3-bets to $75. I've seen him do this with playable hands other than monsters, so when the tight player tosses his hand in the muck, I think this is the perfect spot to jam all in since the limper only has about $300. I throw in the 1 chip to indicate that I'm all in, and he goes in the tank. But I'll save you the time because he eventually tosses his hand in the muck, and we take down $101 of dead money, which I'm perfectly fine with. In this next hand, the $6 straddle is on, and I'm on the button with king 9 of clubs. Everyone folds to me, and I open it up to $20. The small blind and straddler put in the call, so we're going 3 ways in position to a flop of 9 deuce deuce with 2 diamonds. They check and flow to me, and I decide to bet $35 with top pair and a solid kicker. Small blind folds, and now the straddler raises to a massive sizing of $165. I'm trying to put him on a range because this specific player would have 3-bet 10s or better against the button open. So I'm putting him on either a 2 or a flush draw, trying to maximize his fold equity. So with that being said, you guys obviously know I'm tilted at this point, so I think he's most likely on a draw. At least that's what I assume. So I just ship it all in, and our opponent doesn't even think for more than 1 second in snap calls. Well, that can't be good. I turn over my hand like I always do when I'm all in, and we go to a 5 of hearts turn and a 9 of hearts river, giving us a full house. Our opponent begrudgingly shows king deuce offsuit for flop trips, and our read of him being on a flush draw was completely off. We only had 2 outs to win this hand, and we finally got lucky.
I think I got my swagger back. Oh!
Nice.
The action gets folded to me in the low jack, and I look down at the bullets once again and raise them up to $15. Every single person proceeds to fold, and I've had enough. I decide I'm going to count my blessings from sucking out, play my button, and book a win since it was almost 2 o'clock, which is when I always leave. Well, we're on the button for our final hand, and the clock is sitting at 1:57 p.m. The $6 straddle is on for this hand, and 3 people put in the $6. I look down at pocket deuces on the button and toss in the $6 as well. The small blind calls, the big blind calls, and now the straddler raises his option to $46. 2 of the early position limpers put in the call, and I call as well given the price I'm getting. The blinds get out of the way, so we're going 4 ways to a flop in position with over $200 in the pot already, and it comes out Jack 8 deuce with 2 clubs giving us bottom set. The straddler starts off with a check, and the other 2 field players check to me as well. I don't think they could have much since they didn't bet when the pre-flop raiser checked, so I decide to bet to a sizing of $85. The straddler calls, and one of the limpers in seat 9 puts in the call as well. We only got rid of one of them, so we're going 3 ways to a turn with over $450 in the middle, and it comes out the 6 of clubs, bringing in the front door flush. Ugh. The straddler checks, and now seat 9, who I've never played with before and is over the age of 70, puts in a $200 bet before I could act. I'm hating life because I don't see how this isn't a flush, but the bet is less than half pot, and there's still plenty of money to play for since this guy has over $570 behind. So for those reasons, I put in the call even though I think he has a flush. The straddler gets out of the way, and if this card doesn't pair the board, I will officially be stuck in our last hand of the day. So we say a quick prayer and go heads up to a river, which comes out the 4 of hearts, not pairing the board. I'm pissed off for not leaving after my aces got no action, but now, to my surprise, our opponent checks. That was the last thing on earth that I was expecting, so now I have to decide what I want to do. I just don't see how I could get value from worse if I were to bet, so for that reason alone, I decided to check it back. Our opponent is hesitant to show, but eventually turns over ace-queen offsuit with the ace of clubs, and our set is good in this massive pot. Even though the clock struck 2 after scooping in this massive pot, we stayed for 2 more orbits to satisfy the unwritten courtesy rule after winning a big pot. All I gotta say is that was a much needed win. In for 1,000 and out for 1,712 for a $712 win. I guess it's better to be lucky than good. For our weekly results, we played a total of 11 hours and 50 minutes of poker and lost a total of $595. I hate losing at anything in life, but I'm pretty thrilled with the result given our little $1,300 combined day 1 and 2 loss total. Hopefully we could finish out the month strong next week and keep this much needed luck going our way. As always, I hope you rung it at the tables, and I'd appreciate it if you could hit the subscribe button to help me reach my year-end goal of 2,500 subscribers.